This is CBC Vancouver News.
Warm weather gives way to a grim outlook.
What we are hearing from experts is that this summer might be a very difficult one for British Columbians.
From record high temperatures to record low snowpack, the Premier warns of a dry summer on the horizon. And it has the province prepping earlier than ever before.
Preparations for this year's wildfire and drought seasons are already well underway.
New strategies are being rolled out as crews brace for wildfire and drought conditions to take hold. Also, too much work, not enough staff.
It's incumbent on teachers to be everything to all students.
Teachers speak out about the struggle to keep up with the workload that gives students the education they need. Hi, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. It was a weekend rarely seen in mid-March. Temperatures nearly 10 degrees above normal in many parts of BC, enough to smash dozens of records province-wide. And while many were happy to bask in the sun, this warm weather is paving the way for growing worries about what's yet to come. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe begins our coverage.
As people in British Columbia wade into spring, mixed emotions.
The sun is definitely warming. The sun is a big difference because we haven't seen the sun for a while.
Joy at the unexpected warmth, fear about what it all means.
I'm concerned about the potential drought, and the fires and everything is so scary.
Over the past few days, dozens of daily temperature records have been shattered, not just in BC, in the Yukon and Alberta too. Beach weather in mid-March.
The sun, the beach, the water is cold, but it's fine.
As the impacts of the climate crisis intensifies,
Climate here in BC is changing really rapidly.
Things aren't so fine, though, according to two provincial news conferences. Anticipating wildfire, BC announced plans to train volunteers and help people who are forced to flee their homes. Anticipating drought, cash is promised for the agriculture sector. But what ranchers really want is rain.
Those insurance programs are designed to cover our bare costs only. You can't make a living at it. We just want to do what our jobs are, and that's to grow food for people and animals.
Environment Canada says this heat could stick around.
Our models are out, and we're seeing that no cold areas. We're seeing every part of Canada. It looks like it's going to be warmer than normal.
That means warm sun, early blossoms, spring joy, tinged with worry. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
The summer-like conditions have the province mobilizing to prepare for this year's wildfire season, as we heard from Lindsay. New strategies and updated protocols are being rolled out, and it appears more help may be on deck than before. The BC Wildfire Service has received double the number of applications this year compared to last. Mira Baines continues our coverage.
The province is preparing for this year's wildfire season after last year's became the worst, most destructive in BC's history.
in fact, we are taking action earlier than ever, and preparations for this year's wildfire and drought seasons are already well underway.
Tens of thousands of people were forced to evacuate from their communities, and hundreds lost their homes. The provincial government was criticized for lack of timely emergency response and supports for people who had to flee, now hoping to change that.
That's why an expanded team of emergency support specialists within my ministry is ready to be deployed to communities who need that extra support.
She's encouraging people who feel they could be at risk for evacuation to create an online profile on the Emergency Services website so they can receive financial support immediately through Interact payments. Last August, there was anger and frustration in BC's Shuswap when some residents refused to leave their homes to fight the fires themselves. The BC Wildfire Service says it bumped up hiring from rural and remote communities. BC Forest Minister says applications have doubled and more technology will be used.
We are expanding the use of wildfire predictive technologies to better pinpoint where wildfires will move and how they will grow.
A controversial method of fire prevention is also set to increase. Cultural and prescribed burn projects will increase to 61 this year compared to 23 last year.
We are trying to go out and reduce some of those fine fuels out in and around and adjacent to communities, working in partnership with those communities to conduct those burns.
Still, weather will be the driving force to what the season will look like, with officials crossing their fingers and hoping for some much-needed rain. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Vancouver police are investigating an attack on a woman in Stanley Park today. The woman called 911 from Lost Lagoon this morning, saying she'd been attacked by a stranger on Lee's Trail. The suspect has not yet been found. He's described as a dark-skinned man in his 20s, about 5'7". Investigators say he was last wearing a dark toque and a zip-up jacket with a checkered pattern on the front. Anyone who might be able to shed light on what happened is asked to call police. It is a provincial election year in BC, with a vote expected this fall. And an early Angus Reid survey finds the ruling NDP leading by far in the polls. The opposition BC United and BC Conservative parties are fighting for a distant second. 43% of respondents say they intend to vote for the NDP. 22% support BC United, formerly the BC Liberals. And 21% would vote for the BC Conservatives. All three parties are clamoring for public opinion, with affordable housing, the toxic drug crisis, and education still top of mind for voters. Beyond that, experts point out the parties themselves are changing.
This is an NDP government that has done a pretty effective job of trying to pivot and straddle the center. So it is center-left, but it's trying to be more centrist than previous iterations of the BC New Democrats. The BC Conservatives have done a pretty effective job of trying to stake their claim in northern British Columbia, where political issues are different, they're seen through a different lens, and where, you know, they used to call it the heartland. The heartland doesn't often feel like it's being listened to.
Well, Premier David Eby himself has a 51% approval rating. His government faces significant criticism. 2/3 of respondents say the NDP is performing poorly on health care, while 4 in 5 are not satisfied with the province's response to the high cost of living. Well, more than 650 teachers from across the province have gathered for the BC Teachers Federation's annual general meeting. And the overarching message is too much work for not enough people.
We do not have enough counselors. We don't have enough child psychologists. There's a lot of positions that are missing. So it's incumbent on teachers to be everything to all students. So that also contributes to our sense of wellness and our sense of being.
This teacher librarian says she regularly has to close her library in order to backfill an empty classroom when there are no substitute teachers available. She says this means many students are being neglected. People living in an encampment at Vancouver's Crab Park have been told they have until the end of the week to temporarily relocate. And some residents are not happy with how they're being treated.
They're giving us garbage bins, like actual garbage bins that people put on the side of the road for the garbage truck to come pick up. That's what they're giving us for storage, in case we need storage. And it's so dehumanizing.
The city says the move is temporary to allow workers to clean up the site and remove large structures and debris. Residents are urged to go to a temporary sheltering area nearby while the encampment is cleaned. They say that should take about a week. Well, Vancouverites and tourists alike are flocking to the local mountains to enjoy the warm, albeit early spring skiing. While the sunny slopes are beautiful, some folks feel cheated out of winter. We hit the North Shore Mountains. Check it out.
I kind of want one more snowfall so I can ski, and then back to summer would be great, but it does feel a bit odd. Yeah, we've been cheated, 100%.
It's pretty hot for like spring, and I never expected this on the mountain, and I sweat a lot, way more than usual.
We have been cheated in winter, but the last 2 weeks has been fantastic. But you know what? It's okay.
It was beautiful views, so we enjoyed that. But we're from Hawaii, and we were looking for cold weather, and we're sweating and hot. So not the contrast we were looking for.
It's just like New Zealand weather, you know, blue sky. What better place to be than in New Zealand? I mean, sorry, in Vancouver. Got it wrong. Oh.
Well, northeast of Kamloops, the village of Chase will soon see their community rink upgraded after winning the Game Changer Reno contest. It was launched in part by the Vancouver Canucks and LaUna earlier this year. BC residents nominated their local rinks for the chance to score $100,000 in upgrades. And earlier today, Finn, Canucks alumni and members of the union all surprised the community to tell them the Art Holding Memorial Arena in Chase is the winner. March is Brain Health Awareness Month. It's meant to shed light on harmful and healthy habits, plus ways to protect your brain. More and more, these conversations involve discussion about time spent online or screen exposure. In a letter published in Nature Human Behavior, researchers are now calling attention to the risks of information overload. It's something they compare to environmental pollution for your brain. For more detail on this, CBC Health columnist Dr. Melissa Lem joins us from Toronto. So Dr. Lem, thank you. How does information overload impact our brain health, and what steps should people take to minimize that harm?
Tanya, the truth is that our brain only has a finite capacity to direct its attention, and our modern world of unending articles and viral videos fills that attention bucket up to the brim until it's overflowing, which causes fatigue, irritability, and trouble focusing. And this can leave our brains paralyzed, whether it's with decision-making or evaluating new information. And combine that with the fact that over 80% of us live in cities, which are filled with other distracting traffic, noise, and crowds, and you've got a recipe for less than optimal brain function. Some things that we can do, though, to minimize those harms are using apps that measure and limit our online time, turning off all those intrusive notifications, and heading outside for at least 2 hours per week, because there's a lot of research showing that time in nature restores our brain's capacity for attention.
Yeah, certainly sometimes that stimulation or overstimulation is subconscious. We don't even realize it. How do you differentiate between brain health and mental health, and how do those two intersect?
Well, the difference between the two is that brain health refers to the overall structure and function of your brain, which includes things like how good its blood flow is, how healthy the connections are between different parts of your brain, and memory and information processing. Whereas mental health focuses on your psychological and emotional well-being, so your feelings, your moods, and behaviors. But the truth is that brain health and mental health are almost inseparable. About 1/3 of stroke survivors develop depression, and elders with anxiety raise their risk of developing dementia by over 50%. Sometimes people forget that our brain is an organ, just like our heart or our lungs, and it can get sick too. Taking care of our mental health means taking care of our brain health, and vice versa.
Now, concussions are the most common type of brain injury. Why is education around post-concussive symptoms so critical?
Well, just like if you sprained your ankle, when your brain gets injured, it needs rest and support to recover. And that means avoiding screen time and tasks that demand a lot of focus and concentration, and getting enough sleep. If we don't educate people about this, unfortunately, those symptoms of headache and dizziness and brain fog are going to be more severe and last longer and cause more disability.
You mentioned sleep, illness and injury aside. We know that sleep is important for general brain health, but how does it actually keep our brain healthy, and what happens when we don't get enough sleep?
Tanya, lots of important processes that support your brain health happen during sleep. For example, parts of the brain get regenerated so it can function normally the next day. Toxins that build up when you're awake get removed. You could say sleep is like a garbage disposal for your brain. If you don't get enough sleep, though, the damage and the toxins build up, which can worsen your mood, your memory, and your focus and creativity. And unfortunately, your body is also affected. Your risk of diabetes, cancer, and obesity go up, and your immune function drops. And that's why it's so important for people at every age to prioritize good sleep as a pillar of health, just like healthy diet and exercise.
No doubt. Well, as always, thank you so much for your expertise today.
Thanks, Tanya.
That's CBC Health columnist Dr. Melissa Lem joining us. Well, still ahead, honoring Brian Mulroney. All sides rose in Parliament today to pay tribute to Canada's 18th Prime Minister. More on what the politicians had to say coming up next. And thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. The University of Manitoba is showcasing how augmented and virtual reality can be used to train health professionals. As the CBC's Arturo Chang reports, the cutting-edge technology will change the way doctors and nurses learn all kinds of skills, from surgical training to conflict resolution.
All right. Put on the goggles and you're inside an intensive care unit.
So that's a patient in front of you. Yes. There's a bunch of tools to your left that you could use.
This is the Acadicus, a virtual reality platform that can be used to create realistic simulations, including an emergency room.
With the handle straight up and down. There you go.
We tried it ourselves at a University of Manitoba showcase, but it's really meant to be used in the classroom.
So mainly with this, we're doing crisis simulations. So we're taking code blues, traumas, and simulating the initial resuscitation.
The U of M's nursing faculty has been using VR tools since 2022. Gilman is working to bring these tools to other programs in the health science faculty.
And it's amazing how quickly you forget that it's a fake patient and you take it very seriously.
Just wondering about my oxygen at home.
Some students got their first peek at the showcase.
There was a patient and I was trying to take blood pressure and temperature and stuff, but it wasn't quite working. Yeah, like it felt realistic.
Also at the showcase were people already working in the medical field. Hong Mei is a physician's assistant working in critical care. She is also a sessional instructor at the U of M.
I think a dummy can only have certain kind of like functions you can actually change. This one you have more options and also you can improvise as the situation evolves.
Can you tell me what happened with your thumb?
Other software such as this one use the power of machine learning and AI. Gilman says all these displays show what medical education will look like in the future.
I've been in simulation for 15 years. We've done a lot of mannequin-based simulation. I think from the portability, the cost-effectiveness of this, and how immersive it is, I think it's only going to get better.
Arturo Chang, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Welcome back into our nation's capital now, where political leaders delivered tributes to Brian Mulroney today, sharing anecdotes about his character and admiration for his achievements. The CBC's Ashley Burke was in the Parliamentary Gallery to hear those tributes.
The family of Canada's 18th Prime Minister, guests of honour in Parliament, a place Brian Mulroney knew so well, leading the country for nearly a decade.
Now rise and observe a moment of silence.
This tribute in front of Brian Mulroney's widow, Mila, and their 4 children, Nicholas, Mark, Ben, and Caroline.
Brian Mulroney's principles helped shape this nation and the world.
The Prime Minister described his last meeting with Mulroney.
We talked about wisdom that he and my dad both shared, that leadership fundamentally is about getting the big things right.
Politicians reflected on his legacy, negotiating NAFTA, protecting the environment, and standing up against apartheid in South Africa.
He recognized that the diversity of our country makes us a richer and stronger nation.
Brian Mulroney quite literally saved all life on Earth when Canada stood up and organized the Montreal Protocol and saved the ozone layer.
The Conservative leader says he sought advice from Mulroney and says his phone calls were a gift.
In fact, for Brian Mulroney, phone calls were like an art form, using the telephone the way Michelangelo might have used a chisel or a brush. He would do it to make business deals, charm foreign leaders, and more importantly, to comfort grieving or suffering friends.
Afterwards, Mulrooney's sons gave thanks of their own.
For us, sitting up in the gallery and hearing everybody speak so positively, probably not what he was used to, but he would have loved it, and we did as well. We're truly honored from all of the people across the country and internationally that have taken the time to reach out to say nice things and words of support.
Dignitaries and the public can pay their own respects to the Mulrooney family on Tuesday as the former Prime Minister lies in state near Parliament Hill. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, Montreal is seeing an influx of wild turkeys roaming the streets. It's amusing to some, but there have been some frightening encounters as well. The CBC's Sarah Levitt explains why the birds are there and what can be done about it.
The interaction delighted onlookers, but clearly terrified the man. A wild turkey, angry and territorial. Then there's this one, strutting his stuff to show off his dominance. What was once a rare sight, turkey encounters are becoming more and more frequent around Montreal.
They've been increasing in urban areas because there's a lot more food here and it's a bit of a safe place from predators. We have milder and milder winters. We have less and less die-off naturally occurring.
An increasing number of Quebec towns are issuing recommendations on how to live peacefully with the fowls.
Try and not approach them. If they do approach you, you want to make some noise and feed them off, pretty much. And other than that, just watch your bird feeders.
Not recommended is taking matters into your own hands. Remember this turkey? Well, the mayor of the town enlisted the help of a resident to take down the turkey with a slingshot. Like David and Goliath, the mayor said, the turkey was killed. This saved as a souvenir. It was illegal, but no charges have been laid yet.
The takeaway from all of this is we need to learn how to adapt to wildlife, particularly new wildlife that's just simply expanding its range.
In some cases, though, that range pushes the limit. Hey, the bus driver says it costs $3.50 to take the bus. The fare skipping, though, doesn't seem to ruffle its feathers. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Oh, no. When you think of the South African desert, snowboarding is not the first thing that probably comes to mind. We'll call this a distant cousin to the Canadian winter sport. Sandboarding is making a comeback in this desert town in West Namibia after a lull during the pandemic. But the open desert and rolling dunes also attract other extreme sports like quadding. The seaside resort has been seeing a tourism boom in recent months. There's been a spike in visitors as many ships go around the African continent to avoid the conflict in the Red Sea. You're looking at a live shot of Vancouver City Hall, and we might be able to get in one more day of that sunny, warm weather before the rain returns. Your 5-day forecast is next.
What are you doing here today?
Showing my steer.
What does that mean?
Showing in it, leading them around in a pen. It's very fun. Once you walk in there, yes, you get really nervous, but once you get the hang of it, it does get really fun.
Today is the 73rd annual PI Easter Beef Show and Sale. It's an annual tradition that happens at 2 to 3 weeks before Easter every year.
At the Eastlink Center in Charlottetown. There's about 41 exhibited cows here from all across the island, and they'll be out in the ring today to show.
Behind me, I have my steer Gunner. The name of my steer is Elmer.
I'm exhibiting a heifer. Her name is Kennedy. She's a Charolais cross. So right now, everyone's just getting their animals ready to go into the ring.
We have to water them, we have to feed them, we have to put them in the chute, we have to glue them, we have to blow them. We have to wash them.
How much work is that?
A lot.
4-H is a big part of our Easter Beef Show. I've been a member of the Grand River East 4-H Club for 13 years now. The people in your club, they're not your family, but they're in your community, so you're tight-knitted. And it's just nice to see everybody. They kind of become your 4-H family, and the people in here just become your show family.
Everybody has a long stick with a hook on it, and they're tapping. What is that?
So that is a show stick. So there's like a little hook and then a straight line, and that's to move their feet. And then when you're stopped, to keep them calm, you scratch them with it, and it feels really nice. So it keeps them really calm.
So you're almost like petting a dog to keep it still.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Great for them to see all the work that they have to do to raise an animal from a newborn calf right through till it's ready to the slaughterhouse. Like,
If you come tomorrow, you're buying meat.
The PI Easter beef is kind of like the starting point of the new year. It sets the tone for the beef industry for the year. It's supposed to be the elite cattle here from each farm that exhibits. So
Whoever wants to buy it will put in like a price. So there will be someone saying prices, and you will like stand up and raise your hand or something to get that price, and whoever has the highest price gets this year.
it's a business that we look forward to every year, and we look forward for a great year in the beef industry.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Experience the choral spectacle of the season and celebrate Vancouver's thriving singing community at Corleone's annual singing festival, The Big Roar, April 13th. For tickets and information, visit corleone.org. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And Darius Madavi is here with a look at the forecast. And Darius, we noticed a lot of pink noses and rosy cheeks today from that first real glimpse of the sun in ages.
Oh yeah, and it was a nice one. It was a hot one, really. No matter where you were across the Lower Mainland and even up the Sea to Sky, even in the Alpine and Whistler, we were experiencing. We saw some double-digit temperatures. So it's been extremely warm, especially with that sun beating down. We saw many weather records smashed yesterday, and again we are seeing. We saw many smashed today as well. We'll get more into that tomorrow once we get the official summary from Environment Canada. But for now, expect one more day of the warmth and the sun before things start to change. Because what's going to happen is, even though we have these beautiful temperatures right now, we're going to see as this cold front continues to move down into northern BC, it's going to continue moving down over the next few days. So by tomorrow already, we see those temperatures drop in the northeast, continuing to drop, and then finally making its way to the southern interior closer to the end of this week. As that happens, a low is going to be moving in from the Pacific, and as that meets that cold front, that's going to mean some precipitation being dropped, particularly over southern BC. We're going to see a little bit of that snow band coming in for the central parts of the province by early Wednesday, and then continuing to move down further south. So our highest chances for showers here in Vancouver and across the south coast and Vancouver Island is likely going to be Wednesday and Thursday, although the North Island may see some before that. Beyond that, we're just going to continue to see that precipitation over the next week or so, or over that week into the end of the weekend, and then we might see another change in those conditions as we get into the end of the month. And I honestly can't believe we're already talking about the end of March. Feels like February was just here. Anyways, we have some nice conditions still for the southern BC tomorrow. Again, we see a bit of that precipitation starting possible, very unlikely, but still possible for parts of the northern and central BC. And then we're going to see really just some cloud on the north and central coasts, and then plenty of sun still throughout the southern parts of the province. If we take a look at a 5-day forecast, a little bit of cloud building in tomorrow night into Wednesday. Then we see a few showers, some cloudy days, some lower temperatures, but overall, it'll feel like spring.
Hopefully, because we always get that teaser and then we go back to kind of that usual winter, rainy, cooler weather, and it's so depressing. But anyway, light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly.
Thanks so much, Darius.
Thanks, Tanya.
And that is your late news for this Monday, March 18th. For news anytime, anywhere, download the free CBC News app. And you can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.